Jeremy Piven spoke to me a few moments ago about Entourage, which opens today. And when I went to see it, I came out of the movie and I called our esteemed production team because I saw it before you.
You did.
And my prediction was Mark's going to hate it. That's what I thought. I don't know if I'm right. I suspect I might be. Let's find out.
Well, I mean, it's no surprise. I do hate it. I absolutely hate it. I hate it. I loathe it. I despise it. I detest it. I feel contempt for it. I just, everything about it rattles, every one of my cages. And there's a number of reasons, but let's begin with something that was said in that interview when you said to Jeremy Piven, you said, is it fair to say that this is how the women are portrayed? And he said, well, yeah, what you have to understand is it's a male fantasy. Well, firstly, that's not an excuse. And secondly, that this idea that there is such a thing as a male fantasy, which just everybody wants to be part of that, I just totally reject. So saying it's a male fantasy is not an excuse for it. And I think it was very interesting that in response to that question, what he did was actually talked about Ari's relationship with his wife, which in the entire film is pretty much exceptional.
Yes, it's true.
As being, I mean, it's not a three-dimensional portrait by any means, but it's it's a 1.1 dimensional portrait. Because other than that, this is absolutely the most loathsome consumerist male dream. And it says something in the production notes. I need to read this to you. It says, ever cruise Sunset Boulevard in a stretch limousine and then hit the red carpet at a star-studded movie premiere? Stop by an impromptu party on the beach in Malibu where the sun always shines and the cocktails flow? Score the best table at the hottest restaurant in town, no reservation required, and all the while, everywhere you go, gorgeous starlets wave as you pass by. It's everybody's fantasy to live the Hollywood dream. It's everybody's fantasy to live the Hollywood dream. Okay, well, let's get one thing clear. No, it isn't. It may be a select audience's fantasy to live the Hollywood dream, but in my case, I absolutely detest everything about the mindset that this film occupies. For one thing, you think at the beginning it's going to become, and I know some people say, well, Mark's not, not a fan of the TV show, and I've never followed the TV show, so therefore I don't have that kind of connection with the characters. That's fine. I'm happy to have no connection with them whatsoever. It is perfectly possible to have, movies and TV programs about people who are utterly loathsome, interested only in money, interested only in cars, interested only in women as property, and for those programs still to be interesting because of the way in which the program approaches them. And I have heard from some people that there is an element of that in the TV show. From the opening moment of this, in which we have an overhead shot of a yacht with a bunch of sort of young hotties dancing around while these guys do the guy stuff. 10 seconds into the film, I'm literally 10 seconds into the film, I leaned to James King and I broke the code of conduct. I whispered to him, I hate this film. I just, like, all my alarm bells went off and I thought, it's okay, but maybe it will settle down. But no, it didn't. What happened was we were shown this, lifestyle, which is all wealth, glittering, money, cars, boats, money, cars. Guys talking about this, themselves, and everything's about themselves, and everything's about, the contents of their underwear, and everything's about how much they've got and how they're driving there and what they're going to, people that I just absolutely have no sympathy for, don't care about them, not interested in them, don't find them charming, don't find them funny. And you keep thinking that what's going to happen is that the film is going to flip. It's going to turn its way around. We're going to see that their lifestyle is. And the way this is set up is that the main guy, who's an actor, he's been given this gig to direct a movie called Hyde. And no one's seen anything of it, but he spent a bunch of money, and clearly the film's going to be a stiff. And at one point, we get to see some clips from it, and it's terrible. It's like one of those movies that Adam Ant used to make in the 1990s that went straight to video. I mean, and that's the joke. But then that isn't the joke, because it's not a stiff. Because actually, the guy who has got no discernible talent whatsoever has made something that is, in fact, brilliant. And the lifestyles of these guys aren't falling apart. They are, in fact, fabulous. And the guys that you see doing just horrendous, awful, horrible, locker room, vile, yuck stuff, they're great. It's where you have the player, right? The player says, look, Hollywood lifestyle, it's empty and vacuous, and it's all to do with, with money, wealth, and sex, and all these things. And it sort of picks it apart. And that's why it works, because it's funny, because you can satirize stuff. This just goes, hey, Hollywood lifestyle, it's all vacuous, and it's about money, and it's about sexism, and isn't that great? These guys, they're loathsome. Hooray! These guys, all they care about is cars. Hooray! These guys, they treat all the women around them as property. Hooray! These guys are really, really annoying company. Everyone loves them. Hooray! I mean, you keep thinking, when's the joke? When does the joke come about how actually none of that is funny? And I'm sitting there in the middle of this thing, which is just like this pornographic, consumerist, hate-filled piece of propaganda, which is just saying to everyone, this is what you should aspire to. This level of moral torpor is what you should, this level of utter vacuity, this just foul, soul-sucking, horrible vacuum of vile emptiness is what you should aspire to. And then you wait for the bubble to be burst, and it isn't. Because the punchline is, they're great. Everyone loves them, and they do really well, and they all like each other. And even the one, and there's some stuff in it which I can't talk about on the radio because it's that time of day. So what you have is a comedy with no jokes. You have satire with no satire. Essentially, it's just like the Generation Game with a conveyor belt of lust, greed, avarice, vice, just being wheeled in front of you and going, yeah, that's great, isn't it? And I wondered whether, am I not laughing because I'm not getting the jokes? Is the satire actually so straight-faced, so deadpan, so unbelievably, just poker-faced that I can't see? And then you realize, no, there are no jokes. It's not meant to be funny. It's meant to be good. You're meant to like these people. You're meant to like this lifestyle. You're meant to want this stuff. You're meant to be seduced by it. I mean, compared to this, Sex and the City 2 is a call to arms for, for the dispossessed masses of the world to rise up. I mean, in terms of its gender politics, Human Centipede is more sensitive. It is a film which not only has nothing other than the syrupy, corpulent, foul display of, the amount of shots of cars and bumpers and cars and bumpers and yachts and cars and bumpers. I would cross the road not to be in the same street as these people, but the movie wants to be with them. The movie is like some awful hanger-on that has found its way into some hideous celebrity party and can't believe it's there and doesn't want to annoy anyone. Then, of course, you get the parade of celebrity cameos with people just lining up to have their faces in this. The notable one being Mark Wahlberg himself, who actually I thought looked embarrassed to be there, because you almost got this sense that he's moved on. Even he realised that this is not acceptable. So whatever else it may be in terms of the show, the TV show, and you have to like the character, believe me, I could have spent 8 characters with these people, and if this is the way they're treated, I wouldn't have wanted to spend another day with them. They are all vile. And I don't believe in any of them. I don't believe in the lie that the film is attempting to sell me about this is what we should aspire to. And more importantly, I don't think it's a comedy. I don't think it's a comedy. I think what it is a piece of propaganda. And I predict that it will be seen as such and rejected as such. I cannot remember, and I'm serious about this, I hate this more than I hate Sex and the City 2, and that's really going some.
That's kind of what I said when I called up the office. Al Murray.
Now, tell me you didn't think the same.
I hated it first.
You hated it first.
I hated it.
He hated it before I did.
I hated it before you. Al Murray on Twitter has just said this is 5.9 on the Courant scale. Someone else.
I thought I was actually quite.
Someone else has just called it an Entourage. But
that's very good.
Entourage is good. Worse than Sex and the City 2.
Yeah, and I'm not kidding.
You're not even kidding.
I'm not even kidding.
So loads of people have seen it, and Gary in Brisbane, it was a terrible film. It was just a extra long version of the TV show with a plot designed to make me not care at all. But you know what? That's all I ever thought it would be. I loved the TV series. I loved Ari Gold. and Johnny drama as characters. There's a guilty pleasure in enjoying something naff because it's just fun. And to be fair, it was actually enjoyable. I'm assuming Mark will absolutely hate Entourage with a passion, and I get that. But I imagine that fans of the show will support it, and I think Mark will always be on the back foot just because he doesn't have the relationship with these characters.
I don't want a relationship with these characters. I don't want these characters in my world. And you know what? They're not. Sorry.
Anyway, when the cast includes Thierry Henry, Jim Robinson from Neighbours and Lieutenant Sulu, how can it be anything other than a bit awesome? Looking forward to hearing what Mark
Somehow it
thinks.
manages.
Somehow it does.
But it's not just me. You hated it like I did.
I did hate it, and I hated it first. And I'm going to put that on. I'm going to put that on the t-shirt. I thought it was loathsome from the moment I walked in.
Bless you.
There you go. We disturbingly agree.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more Entourage, and but also we have some very big news coming up. Which will make you feel morally clean and righteous. Amma Asante is going to be with us the other side of the news. You can get involved. mayo@bbc.co.uk. Text 85058. It's been a while, hasn't it? Hello, good afternoon. It's 10 minutes past 3. If you've just joined us, you missed the Entourage conversation. That was fun. Sanjeev Bhaskar has just called it
the word fun. Go on.
Ranta Rage.
That's very good. Hello, Sanjeev.
Chris in Glasgow. Amma Asante's joined us, by the way. Hello, Amma.
Hello.
But you're just part of this sort of Entourage conversation, even though you haven't seen the film.
I know, even though I haven't seen the film, and I'm definitely going to go and see it now. I have to.
Why?
I have
Are you?
to say.
No.
Why?
Because
Why? You'll just
I want to
encourage
feel
them.
everything that you've just felt, that you've just explained.
But you want to be that angry?
Described. No, I want to know how not to make a film like that. I want to know how not to get that kind of review.
You know how not to make a film, you know.
Chris in Glasgow, I agree with Mark. I haven't seen the film, but a misguided friend loaned me the DVD of the series and said, watch this, it's great. I had to take it off after 10 minutes thinking, I really don't want these people in my house. Sarah...
No, that I think is exactly the feeling. I don't want these people
and I entirely agree with Mark. I wouldn't want to spend 5 seconds with any of them.
And believe me,
not one person.
He's good cop, right? He's Mr. Nice. He is. It was called by a newspaper the nicest man on radio.
You make me understand why I've stayed this side of the Hollywood waters.
Very good.
Yes.
Sarah Dawson, au contraire. Listening to Mark's roundabout Entourage, wow, he really, really doesn't like the film, does he? Perhaps he should remember that some people might do. Entourage is everything he says it is. However, I still loved it. I'm a successful, independent woman with lots of similar female friends. We love Entourage, the TV show, and are looking forward to the film. It's a fantasy based on a true story about Mark Wahlberg, who made it big in Hollywood and took his friends with him. It's completely ridiculous, but it's fun to watch, and you get to like the guys. No one that watches Entourage expects it to be anything other than a light-hearted, pleasurable way to spend a couple of hours. Well, it wasn't light-hearted, it wasn't pleasurable, and I didn't like it.
But it was a couple of hours.
Ooh, and I say call us when you've seen the movie.
Brian Cunningham, for the first time ever, I've heard a Kermodian rant live. That's up there with Sex in the City too. It really is something to behold in real time. Kudos to you, sir. Pete Burton from the Durham Aged Mine Workers Homes Association. Could you ask Mark to get off the fence? Ryan Pollard, is Entourage worse than Pain and Gain?
That's a very smart question. Actually, yes, I think it probably is.
Simon in Telford, that was worth the licence fee alone, dear BBC. Pete in Leeds, at home with a crippling migraine. This review has really cheered me up.
What was that about Sex and the City too, though?
Well, one of Mark's
Sex and the City.
One of Mark's
hated Sex and the City too. We're going to fall
I
out.
adored it.
Okay,
Sex and the City 2.
Let's not even go there.
I won't even tell you. I had an experience where I went with all females, and it was in Holland, and it was women's night at the cinema. That was actually what it was called. And we had nice young men who gave us out goodie bags. And can I just say, we had a good time all round.
Well, Amma, you know, one of the the wonderful things about your filmmaking is that I like your films enough to rise above the fact that you've just made that confession.
Thank you so much. I mean, I did think about it before I made the confession.
And you know, other opinions are available, clearly. I mean, the fact of the matter is, most of the time, I am completely out of step with everyone else's opinions. But the only thing I can say is...
That's why we love you, Mark.
I do. Thank you very much.
My guess is, if you must get in touch once go on Twitter or something else.
Yes.
When you've seen it.
Yes.
And tell us what you thought.
I think I should go and see it, just because. In fact, I think you've made more people go and see it.
And
now I want to know.
Now I'm unhappy.
But you come out and you want to shower. You want a bath.
Well,
I think so.
Can I just say, the first review I read about my first film said exactly that in the first line.
No.
Yes, in my first film, A Way of Life.
Life.
Yeah.
For which you won a BAFTA.
For which I won a BAFTA. They said
Who
Amma
said that?
Asante's debut movie makes you want to leave the cinema and take a shower. I erased
Who
the name.
said that?
I have to erase the name from my memory.
Todd Haynes, who then, of course, went on to be, a very, very successful director. His first feature, which I think he co-directed after Superstar, he made a film called Poison. And there was a review in, I think it was the New York Times, that the reviewer said that afterwards he wanted to bathe in Clorox. So,
But Clorox.
it's happened to everybody.
What do critics know, Amma? Anyway,
Took my breath away.
That's the thing. Anyway, so as more people see on, and then there's more emails, and we can come to that if we want to spend any more time.
If we want to beat ourselves
in
up
that
about
cesspit
any more
squalor.
You know what I love about it is how much it's bothered you, because generally, the way this works is that I'm, ranty, annoyed bloke, and you're genial. Well, other opinions of it. What I love about this is that
Both of
you feel every bit as outraged by that film as I do.
Yes, you're halfway through and you think if the apocalypse happened now, it would be a good thing just to stop all this. Stop it now. Just stop it.
Stop.
So you'll have Mark Wahlberg in the studio next week then, yes?
He's great. Mark Wahlberg is, but he's not. The
He
main
looks
reason.
embarrassed. Honestly, he looks embarrassed. He turns up to this cameo and he looks embarrassed.
That was good. That was quite nicely worked out.
Thank you.
Anyway, we can return to this theme, but the reason Amma is here is not to talk about Entourage. She certainly wasn't booked for that reason.
Indeed.
But the main reason is because we have a big announcement.